Is Greece ready to cut a deal with the Eurozone? A new twist in the Greek debt emergency. The Mediterranean crisis 2015 at 6 months. Refugee and migrant numbers are the highest on record. And he's fired. Bad news for a GOP presidential candidate and reality TV star. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Tonight, Egypt's Islamic State affiliate is claiming responsibility for a wave of deadly attacks Wednesday in the Sinai Peninsula. Security officials say at least 20 soldiers were killed. The attacks against multiple military checkpoints included a suicide bombing near the town of Sheikh Zumayd. An Islamic State group statement says the terrorists hit 15 different checkpoints in the assault. Islamist militants in Sinai have repeatedly gone after Egyptian security forces with bombings and shootings. The latest attacks come days after Egypt's top prosecutor Hisham Barakat was killed by a roadside bomb in Cairo. Now, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has vowed to strengthen anti-terrorism laws while blaming the outlawed Muslim Brotherhood for Barakat's death. The prosecutor had overseen the cases against thousands of Islamists who have been jailed and convicted and the mass trials as part of a mass crackdown since former President Mohamed Morsi was kicked out of office. For more perspective on the situation in Egypt, Ed Iranian joins us by phone from Cairo. Ed, first, today's attacks, can you update us on what is the status? Is it over or the fighting goes on?
Yes, according to Arab media, the fighting was going on mid-afternoon. The details are a bit murky in the sense that there aren't a lot of journalists up there, and the few people who the Arabsat channels have been calling have been pretty much been rather vague with the details. Al Jazeera TV, the Arabic version, has had the most details of the attacks, but of course we can't confirm their details, so it's a bit of a he said, she said sort of thing, because the military spokesman has been giving out lower figures than we've been hearing from other sources in terms of casualties. But it does seem clear that there have been at least 5 attacks on different army checkpoints. There's one amateur video of an enormous explosion with a fireball after that. And we're hearing reports there was at least one suicide bombing, so I'm not sure if that is the suicide bombing that goes with the video, but certainly a lot of casualties, unconfirmed reports that the militants have taken control of part of the town of Sheikh Zumayd. The police are denying that, but really what we're hearing is they're surrounded and the roads have been mined.
Now, Ed, does it seem like the militants are really getting a foothold in Egypt, or this can be just compared with past attacks?
You know, I think the media is looking at Egypt with a much a magnifying glass these days, because a lot of people would like to say the military overthrew Mr. Morsi, the Islamist president, and therefore they deserve what they're getting. So you're hearing a lot of that. That's certainly the tone you're getting out of Jazeera TV. In terms of past precedents, well, you know, there's a war raging in Yemen right now where there are thousands of people who are, I don't know, I don't want to say they've been killed. There are really no accurate figures. Certainly a lot of people have been wounded. At least several thousand people, according to some reports, have been killed. And the Egyptians were involved in another conflict in Yemen back in the 1960s, and we hear that there were 40,000 Egyptian troops who were killed. So this is really nothing compared to that.
How are people? What are people saying about the ability of el-Sisi to fight and defeat these terrorists?
Once again, a lot of things out of the American media saying that the Egyptian military is in trouble. Clearly, a lot of people in the United States sympathize with the Muslim Brotherhood and would like to see them come back to power. I don't get that sense here in Cairo. Perhaps in the provinces, the Muslim Brotherhood has stronger support, but here in Cairo, you have mostly a rally around the flag effect from these attacks from the last couple days, car bombings. And I would say that Mr. Sisi is very popular these days.
Ed, we appreciate that update. Ed Iranian reporting from Cairo. Now, debt-ridden Greece appears ready to accept its creditors' demand for more austerity measures But the European leaders are ruling out more negotiations with Athens until after Greeks vote Sunday on whether to accept the financial restrictions in exchange for more bailout loans. And Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras says he is ready to accept most of Europe's terms for new bailout money after it missed a key $1.8 billion loan payment Tuesday to the IMF. Africa 54 Zoe Ludaki has more on the country's financial woes.
Banks remain closed in Greece. People are still forming endless lines in front of the ATMs, and everyone is talking about Sunday's referendum. Greek citizens are being tasked on whether to accept or vote down austerity measures imposed by the international lenders. A Greek law professor says this is a calculated political move by Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras.
This government announcement raised a lot of nationalistic feelings, and it was based on this underdog culture that is prevalent in Greece, that says that Greece is always the victim of the shenanigans of the big powers.
The Greek government presents the referendum as an opportunity for the voices of the Greek people to be heard. Greek Prime Minister Tsipras says he will abide by the will of the people, but in reality, he has been prompting citizens to vote no. This is the actual ballot with a rather convoluted question. Should we accept or decline a proposal put forward by the international lenders on June 25th? This proposal has since been withdrawn. So what is the referendum really about?
Greeks are confused too, because this is after all a bogus referendum, because the question is a phantom question. There is no object for this referendum. And now the Greek people have to decide on a non-existing proposal, and at the same time, any result, it will lead to a dead end. Different kinds of dead end, but I cannot see how any kind of result will lead to a speedy and happy solution, to a happy end.
Aristidis Hadjis believes the real issue at stake in the referendum is whether Greeks want to stay in the Eurozone and the European Union.
It's not easy to stay in the European Union when you leave the Eurozone. First of all, this is going to be unprecedented for a country to leave the Eurozone. The way that Greece is going to leave the Eurozone will create so many problems of different nature and different categories of problems that it's going to be extremely difficult to remain a part of the European Union, because there is a chance that Greece will develop into a kind of a European failed state.
Aristidis Hadjis believes that the gap between no and yes is shrinking fast, especially after the imposition of capital controls at the Greek banks this week. Tuesday, thousands of people gathered in front of the Greek parliament in support of staying in Europe. But the situation is in flux. Whatever the outcome, this referendum will have long-term effects on the position of Greece in the world.
On to East Africa now. Kenya's Westgate Mall partially reopened to the public on Wednesday, nearly 2 years after it was the scene of a deadly attack. But many shops, cafes and restaurants will not reopen for a few months. On September 21, 2013, Al-Shabaab gunmen attacked the gleaming Westgate complex in Nairobi, killing at least 67 people and wounding over 175 others. The mall siege lasted 4 days, and when it was over, all 4 gunmen had been killed. The assault was devastating to the heart of Nairobi's prosperity. Kenya is the economic hub of East Africa, but fears of terrorism have hurt business and scared away some foreign tourists since that attack. Now, a new report from the United Nations Refugee Agency shows that a record 137,000 migrants have made the perilous journey across the Mediterranean Sea this year. That is an 83% increase compared to the same period last year. In a report released Wednesday, the UN High Commission on Refugees says Europe is living through a maritime refugee crisis of historic proportions as those migrants make the risky journey to seek better living and economic conditions. The report says 1/3 of this year's migrants reaching Greece or Italy are refugees from the war in Syria. 12% are fleeing violence in Afghanistan, and another 12% are fleeing persecution in Eritrea. The UN says more than 1,800 migrants have died this year trying to reach Europe by boat. European leaders are struggling to craft a response to the huge increase in migrants. Migrant traffic is expected to stay high over the next few months as refugees and people smugglers take advantage of the warm weather in the Mediterranean. Now, to West Africa, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari faces criticism as he keeps the nation waiting while he selects his cabinet. Buhari, who was sworn in over 4 weeks ago, but has yet to name a cabinet and may not do so until September. An official says he is taking time to find credible ministers and build a government untainted by the corruption of the past. Buhari swept to power in March on an anti-graft ticket. His defeat of incumbent Goodluck Jonathan was seen as a positive step for Africa's top oil producer, given the corruption scandals that have blighted previous administrations. Buhari's anti-corruption drive has been at the heart of his moves so far, alongside efforts to establish a military force with Cameroon, Chad and Niger to fight the 6-year insurgency of Boko Haram in northeast. Well, now for more insight on Mr. Buhari's cabinet dilemma, I'm joined by Leo Kayan, head of VOA's Hausa service. Leo, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Vincent.
Now, first, I think this comes as a surprise to everybody. Has there been a case where a Nigerian president has taken this long to appoint a cabinet because he's looking for people who are really corrupt, free, or untainted by corruption?
That is a very big exercise, first of all, because in a country where everybody is seen as corrupt, it's difficult to find the righteous people. But I think the main thing to note here is that Buhari is coming in at a time when the constitution is self-changing, because one, the governors are not going to give him any list anymore, so he's a more independent mind. It's going to take time to really scrutinize what list is coming to him. That's number one. Number two is the National Assembly that is supposed to pass the list is not itself organized at the moment. It's involving some rancor. It's going to take some time for them to get that over because it looks like it's very entrenched. And, thirdly, you know that Buhari's party is made up of a conglomerate of different shades of opinions. The amalgamation that came to power has to now look at the people that came there. It's more difficult, I think, to form a government out of people who protested than to form from a party.
Yeah. Now, some people are wondering, how is he running the government at this point?
Well, it's not as if the government is absolutely not without anybody. There are permanent secretaries that are running ministries at the same time. And right now, the directors are still functional. The civil servants are running the show at the moment, I think, effectively.
Does that, in a way, impact the level of kind of engagement by investors with the government of Nigeria? Because generally, investors go in to talk to cabinet members or officials at that level of government.
Yeah, but you need to know that the policies have not even been formulated by Buhari yet. Because if you get a policy out of the government, it's just coming from the party at the moment. Yeah. And that's not good enough. It's when the laws are passed that these are going to come into effect. And I think people just have to wait and nothing else.
Now, in terms of getting a corrupt, free, or a government that has not been tainted, a person who has not been tainted by the past, what are the Nigerians saying back home? Do they feel like Buhari is really serious to even think of that?
Nigerians know that he is been able to weather the storm of corruption himself. Therefore, there is this Buhari message that's going out that for you to serve in this government, you need to be another Buhari. Now, what that means is that you have to be kind of away from corruption, probably not part of the past government, and ready to move on with the country out of corruption. Now, that is a very difficult thing to do naturally, but we hope it's going to get there somehow, because I think there are very good Nigerians on the ground, just that it's difficult to find them or they've gone back into their shells because they were just not promoted at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure out of the over 170 million Nigerians, he will find some good men and women.
Definitely. Hopefully,
well,
too.
Leo, thank you very much.
Thank you, Vincent.
For your insights. Leo Kayan is the head of VOA's House Service. Now, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, how hate groups are using the internet to spread their influence. Stay with us.
News and notes. This is Living Better.
Rheumatoid arthritis, or RA, is an autoimmune disorder that affects the lining of the joints, causing painful swelling.
Opening simple things like jars or a bottle of milk in the morning can, bring you to tears.
Erin Stafford is not yet 30, but says some days she feels like she's 80. But there may be help on the horizon for millions of people like her. Ranjani Thomas, lead researcher at the University of Queensland, is working on a new vaccine-style treatment for RA using a patient's own cells, modified and re-injected into the patient to quiet the immune response.
It's rather re-educating the immune system so that instead of responding to that enemy, to actually stop responding so that things will quieten down.
In a phase 1 clinical trial, the vaccine was found to be safe and effective. The researchers say their approach is experimental, but if successful, might also be applied to other autoimmune diseases. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
Welcome back. Now, hate groups of various kinds are using the internet for propaganda and recruitment. A Jewish human rights organization that monitors these groups, the Simon Wiesenthal Center, says their influence is growing. Their messages are different, but the calls to hatred or violence are still similar. VOA's Michael Sullivan reports from Los Angeles.
The violence came last week to Tunisia, where a young Islamist extremist killed nearly 40 tourists, and to a Shiite mosque in Kuwait in a suicide bombing that killed 27, and to Paris in January with the massacre of 12 at the French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. Rabbi Abraham Cooper of the Wiesenthal Center, which monitors online hate groups, says the acts are celebrated on the internet and on social media sites used by extremist groups like Islamic State.
They are showing remarkable agility in applying the cutting-edge technologies of the internet in order to mass market and also in order to get to specific parts of the population.
He says Islamic State has a sophisticated propaganda and recruitment effort, like this slick online magazine. It even uses social media to connect its online visitors with its frontline fighters. The internet is also a force in U.S. hate crimes. Dylan Roof, who is charged with killing 9 African Americans in a Charleston church, absorbed his white supremacist ideology online. Former neo-Nazi skinhead Tim Zoll, who works with the Wiesenthal Center, sees a similar message to what he once believed. He says today's extremists often share a list of perceived enemies.
Zionism, the evil tyrannical Jew. Number 2 was the United States government, and then the transnational corporations.
He used to meet with skinhead friends in this suburban park. Today, he says, it's happening online.
Somebody can be in the middle of South Dakota somewhere where it's 3 feet of snow and still have access to the narrative and the propaganda.
Rabbi Cooper says the web has produced an online echo chamber.
It gives a sense of empowerment. It gives a sense of community. You're not alone. If you're thinking this way, you're not alone.
Tim Zoll says extremists hear the rhetoric of hate, but need to hear the other side of the story.
There needs to be that voice. And I think the most important voices are voices of people such as myself and other former violent extremists who are doing what they can to bring about that counter-narrative.
The Wiesenthal Center's Rabbi Cooper says internet social sites that host online hate speech need to be part of the solution, that hate can be marginalized, and online posts that cross the line from hatred to terrorism should not be tolerated. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Los Angeles.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, a Republican presidential candidate's reality TV career comes to an end. We'll be right back.
Mary Simon.
Alvin is using plastic waste to light your wood on fire. The fuel has become an easy source of income for the young people. There are 5 similar companies in
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here is what is trending. Trump has been dumped. NBC Universal announced that it would no longer be working with Donald Trump, including on his hit reality show, The Apprentice, following the lead of Spanish-language broadcaster Univision, which severed its partnership with Trump last week. NBC cited Trump's recent derogatory statements about Mexican immigrants. NBC, like Univision, says it will no longer air the Trump-partnered pageants Miss USA and Miss Universe. NBC was under pressure to ditch Trump after his comments at his presidential announcement rally that immigrants coming over the U.S.-Mexican border were rapists and drug dealers. So what does the Donald have to say to NBC? See you in court. Next up, boxers Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao topped Forbes' list of the world's 100 highest-paid celebrities, with an estimated $300 million in earnings over the past 12 months. Mayweather more than lived up to his nickname Money and was the undisputed champion. Pacquiao was second, making $160 million over the past 12 months. Their final earnings from the last May's Las Vegas bout have not yet been disclosed. Forbes' estimates were based on what experts have described as the richest fight in boxing history. Singer Katy Perry's massive Prismatic World Tour helped her nab third place with $135 million. And finally, sad news about one of Hollywood's golden couples. Oscar winner Ben Affleck and his wife, actress Jennifer Garner, have split. The couple were married for 10 years. Having marked their anniversary on Monday. The two are parents to 3 young children. The couple often enjoyed family time together at home in Los Angeles, where they were frequently spotted on carpool, school activity outings, and Affleck often spoke of how much Garner helped stabilize his life after it had become tabloid fodder in the years following his 2004 split with Jennifer Lopez. And that is what is trending today.
Well, thanks a lot. Now, having a prime location is a major key to success for any business owner. In this particular case, the owner of Kumasambala Bamba Beach restaurant in Accra, Ghana, could not have found a better location. This eatery is now the go-to place for great food, parties, live music, and of course, the beautiful scenery. VOA's Pondio has more.
If you happen to be in the Ghanaian capital, Accra, and you are looking for a trendy spot to unwind, hang out with family and friends, the Kumba Sambalabamba Beach restaurant, which means sunset in one of the dialects, is the place to check out.
Well, I think it's the way we relate to people and the way that we don't play loud music People prefer to come from their homes to come and sit down and enjoy the breeze and have a peace of mind.
Owned by Chef Gina Grant Daisy, who started it nearly 15 years ago, the Kumba Samba La Bamba Beach restaurant has gained in popularity over the years, in part because it serves a wide variety of delicious, authentic Ghanaian dishes. She says that they take their foods very seriously, and the restaurant only uses the highest quality meats, seafood and produce.
We have lots and lots of African food and a little of continental. Yeah.
What's your best dish?
Here, I think the best dish that goes very, very fast is the tilapia. It's this water fish called tilapia and a local corn dough called banku.
Ghanaian cuisine is quite sophisticated with liberal and adventurous use of exotic spices and textures. Chef Daisy prides herself as one of the best chefs in town.
And we have a special kumasamba, tilapia and banku. We season it very well, and you see how we've made with the tomatoes and the onions on top. The ladies know how to do the banku very well. There are no lumps. It's very nice.
Daisy is looking to expand her business, and she is seeking new funding or partners to build a multi-million-dollar hotel and restaurant. Construction on the site has been delayed, but she remains optimistic about the future of her business. Kumasamba La Bamba boasts of an outdoor terrace, a beautiful indoor dining room, and live entertainment every weekend. Randy Bromby, a regular at the restaurant, says there are benefits to settling on a beach. For example, he says people often visit to unwind and let loose for a few hours, while enjoying the great scenery, coastal atmosphere, but most importantly, the great food.
It's such a unique place. I like the management, the atmosphere, but most especially, I like the crowd. It's a matured crowd. You come in here, you have fun, you don't get bothered. You meet people. I've met a couple of friends here that I haven't seen in a long time. Yeah. I also transact business here. It's a good atmosphere for business.
For beachgoers, dining at Kumasamba La Bamba is all about being relaxed and stress-free. A beach restaurant needs to have customers who exemplify what positive coastal vibes are all about. Paul Ndiho, VOA News.
I feel hungry, right? Well, it's time. That's it for our show for today, Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us here in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute, where we teach you all about idioms in American English. If you have ever heard American English before, you may have heard this.
Keep your chin up.
What does this mean? Let's find out by listening to an American English conversation.
I don't know if I can take anymore. First, my car broke down, then I was late for work, and now my boss is mad at me for being late.
You'll have a better day tomorrow. Just keep your chin up.
Keep your chin up means to keep your spirits high and remain cheerful in a difficult situation.
Keep your chin up.
This is an informal expression that can be used in any situation, and everybody in America will understand you. And that's English in a Minute.